So, living with ADHD, a lot of times I have felt like a failure as a parent because I miss deadlines, I forget appointments, my room is a mess, I'm a mess. I have felt like not the best example to follow, um, but I have started my son on a routine, and I printed out this to-do list for him, and simple things, right? Like wake up and make your bed, brush your teeth, make sure you floss, tidy up your room so that he cleans his room on a daily basis and the mess doesn't just pile up like it does for me. Because right now my room is a disaster. Um, and I've had my parents tell me things like, "How do you expect them to do all these things if you don't do them?" Like, and a lot of people will tell you you need to lead by example. But for those of us who struggle with mental health difficulties and who have diagnoses like I have ADHD, major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, cerebral palsy, I have all these co-occurring conditions that really make it hard to function most days, and to set the best example of what a functioning human being should look like. Um, it's hard to lead by example. But that doesn't mean we can't help our kids be better than us, right? So I have this chore list or to-do list, and I will teach them things like, try the Pomodoro technique, like for exercise. Exercise for 20 minutes and then move on to the next thing on your to-do list. A lot of these things you don't have to do them in order. You can pick the order in which you want to do them. Um, and he's 10, and I have been very open with him from early on about mental health and things like ADHD and how they affect me. And I tell him, look at my room. It's a mess and it makes life much more difficult and stressful than it needs to be because I'm constantly looking for things, constantly losing things. Um, and I don't want you to end up like that. I want you to have a better life than the one that I'm leading, right? I wasn't taught like coping skills or organizational skills when I was younger, and that's why I'm trying to instill um, these these routines and these skills in you now because I know that they're going to help you as you get older. And does he always want to like clean his room? Does he always want to check off the things on his list? Like I have different things like exercise body for at least 30 minutes. So that could be walking on a treadmill. We have a treadmill. It could be, you know, going outside and riding his bike for 30 minutes. And then I have exercise mind, which could be reading a book for 30 minutes, doing a crossword puzzle. Um, I have exercise body, exercise mind. Um, I have do one thing to help an adult. Just things that I think will be good for him and that I would like him to incorporate into his everyday life. And he doesn't always follow it, right? It's not something that he sticks to religiously. He's a child, and so he still struggles sometimes. And sometimes he gets upset when he's playing video games, and I ask him, "How is your to-do list coming along? Have you done this?" And but for the most part, he's pretty understanding and he's pretty good about doing things when I remind him to do things. And even with socializing, right? I grew up with a lot of social anxiety. I didn't have very many friends growing up. I hardly went to like birthday parties. I was hardly invited to anything. And so now, um, even socializing now as an adult is difficult for me. And but I really push myself out of my comfort zone to go with him, like when he gets invited to like a classmate's birthday party, or to we recently signed him up for Boy Scouts. So I want him to have a much better life than the one that I had. And I know all of these things start with instilling certain things, certain routines and values and ideals um, in him very early on. And just because we, struggle with being organized, and by we, I mean any of us who are suffering from any mental health or other type of diagnosis. It could be like a chronic physical illness, right? That keeps us from maybe setting the best example of what a functional adult in society is supposed to be. Because if you look at my room right now, um, it just is not what a room is supposed to look like. Let's just leave it at that. It is so messy. Um, and I just want to point out that even if we can't lead by example necessarily when it comes to certain things because our conditions make it difficult, um, that doesn't mean that we can't help our kids, right? Um, and, that saying, do as I say, not as I do. And I know that there's some truth to kids will follow your example, um, not what you tell them to do. But I think that if we, from a very early age, um, talk to them openly about these things and explain to them why, because I tend to explain a lot of things to my son. I tell him, this is why I'm asking you to do this, because this is going to help you as you get older. And he understands um, that just because mom isn't the most organized or the cleanest person doesn't mean that he has to be that way, and that he can do better, he can be better. Um, and I know that it can be hard, and that a lot of times these conditions make it so that we can't function, and that might make us feel like failures as parents. But there are ways that we can work around it, like setting a schedule and a routine for our kiddos, um, and still be good parents, right? And just to remember to practice um, self um, self empathy and kindness, and try to not be so hard on ourselves, which can be difficult. But yeah, that's I guess all I wanted to come on here to say about that.